LuchaCentral.com presents Masks, Mats, and Mayhem.
Yo, what's up, Oso? Oh, do you listen to my podcast?
Yes.
All right.
Good show. Good show. Welcome to a very special edition of Masks, Mats, and Mayhem for Virtual Expo Lucha 2020. We are joined today by a guy, I hope anybody who watches this show knows him very well. He's one of the guys who helped bring Lucha Libre to the States in the fashion that you know it today. He's worked with just about everybody, and I would swear to God about 2 years ago, if you were doing something in wrestling that Konnan didn't touch outside of WWE, I would have been shocked and amazed, and maybe even still today. So we are joined today by the one and only master of the verbal gems, Konnan. How's it going today, Konnan?
Yo, what's up, Oso? Oh, do you listen to my podcast?
Yes.
All right. Sweet.
Good show. Good show. In fact, you know what? I'm going to start right there with your boy DI.
Right.
You guys were kind of promoting this thing a couple weeks ago, and DI questioned why people would even care about a podcast that was still about Lucha Underground. Like, what the fuck is that?
Because he's still kind of ignorant, even though he wrestled with a bunch of luchadors, and he's actually wrestled for me and TJ, and a lot of his friends are luchadors. He's not a big lucha fan, and I think there's also a part of him that's just a not natural provocateur, and he likes to get shit that's going to generate heat. You know what I'm saying? plus, we can't forget that at last year's Expo Lucha, if you guys were there or not, but it is documented, he got beat up by like 10 minis in a battle royal. So he might be, there might be some sour grapes over that.
I believe if you keep watching this thread today that you will actually get to see that footage right here today on Expo Lucha. Yeah, I was a little salty by that. I mean, he was talking about Lucha Underground like it was this dead thing and that it didn't have some kind of impact on the wrestling business in general. And right. It's like, man, he was a big name or a mid-card name, 20 years ago. Right. And even then he was doing a disco gimmick from 20 years before that. And he was putting down Lucha Libre right now. I was kind of salty about that.
Yeah,
Normally I agree with Glenn.
Well, let me tell you what's the problem with Glenn. It's the same problem we have with a majority of American fans. There's almost like a snobbishness about, oh, is that Lucha? And, how come they don't sell? And how come they don't do this? And how come they don't do that? And I go, so basically what you're actually telling me is, how come this isn't more like American wrestling? That's really what you're saying. This is because it's Lucha Libre. So like when you go to Japan, you don't ask Japanese why they eat with chopsticks. You know what I'm saying? That's their fucking culture, and strong styles their fucking culture. And that's our culture. Sometimes we just want to be entertained. We don't need to have a storyline. We don't need everything to look logical. Sometimes we just want to see a video game match. And I couldn't be too wrong, because if you look at the shit that I planted way back in 95 or 96, when we first went to WCW, when we were getting totally disrespected by the announcers, they'd be talking about anything but the lucha match. And when they were talking about the lucha match, they were fucking talking down to it. Okay. Plus you had half the crew who hated Lucha and were making snide comments all the time and didn't want to wrestle with us. Now you look at the impact that Lucha's had, bro, like wrestling is more Lucha-centric than it is even American wrestling. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of gotten overboard. Why? Because the same thing I thought back in 96 held true for a younger generation. They were like, fuck the rest holds and fuck all this slow moving shit. I want to do some fast shit. I want to do flips. I want to do, and Lucha brought, when you first see Lucha, you're like, what is this? You know what I'm saying? So, he's one of those guys that's never gotten Lucha.
Yeah, it blew my mind. Like I was in 96, 95, 96, I was a huge ECW mark. I was tape trading and shit. I'm from that Gen X group of people that loved that stuff that was coming in. And my generation kind of saw Lucha Libre come into the States in a new way. We saw like hardcore wrestling become a thing and all these things that had this impact on wrestling down the line. And, it blew my mind the first time I traded somebody and got a tape that had Rey Mysterio and Psicosis on it. Like I was like, what the fuck am I looking at right now? This is insane. Like how responsible were you? And don't get me wrong, I got a ton of Lucha Underground questions, but I just want to know like how responsible were you in those early days in getting those guys over here and bringing that style up here? And why did you even think that it could play in America?
1000%, bro. I was always their biggest promoter because I just always, you know, when I met Rey Mysterio, when I first saw Lucha, here's the other thing that, let me just preface it by saying this. I grew up in Miami, okay? But I didn't grow up like a fanboy or like a big Lucha fan, or I want to be a wrestler when I grow up, which when I talk to most wrestlers, that's what they wanted to be since they were a kid. You know, so I grew up in Miami, and it was another type of style. You know, it was like Dory Funk versus Jack Briscoe, a lot of mat wrestling. You know, really cool shit, real good storytelling. So I grew up on really good wrestling. Then all of a sudden, I saw a little bit of Mexican wrestling when the Olympic Auditorium, we would see it in Miami. It was actually Channel 23, which was the only Hispanic station in Miami, and they would show like wrestling from the Olympic Auditorium, and every now and then you'd see some luchadors there, right? But in 1988, I think it was, I went to my first lucha show in TJ, and I was completely mesmerized and blown away by what they were doing. I was like, wow, not only is this incredible, the crowd is super hot, and you get to wear a cool mask and a cape. Where do I sign up? You know? So I was just like blown away. And then when I was watching like wrestling in the United States, I was always like, wow, this is kind of boring compared to Lucha Libre. And I remember when I first talked to Vince McMahon to do the Mass Moon gimmick, you know, he thought I knew how to wrestle like American style, and I didn't. So he had and there's pictures. He had to like import guys from Mexico, Rambo, Love Machine, Damien 666. And there was one guy that knew how to base me for Lucha. He was a Southern California guy, Louis Spicoli, because he grew up in LA and there was a lot of lucha, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so like, I've always been like, you know, even when Paul Lee first asked me, Paul Heyman, he was like, hey man, he goes, I've heard about, you know, Eddie Guerrero and Love Machine. I want to bring them down. I go, would you recommend them? And we were on a trip to Singapore, and I was like, bro, those guys are fucking incredible. They're going to kill it. And then he was like, yeah, I've been hearing a lot about this Rey Mysterio. How good is he? I go, dude, with all due respect, he's going to go in there, and there is nobody like him in Psychosis. And so, you know, he brought them over there. And the same day I could tell he was still in the arena, he called me up and he goes, man, I need to get them back next week. Can we work that out? And I go, yeah. You know, so I was always pushing them no matter what. I just always believed in Lucha. I always believed in Rey. I always believed in Psychosis. I just thought it was a quicker, better, creative, more type of wrestling. So everywhere I went, I always recommended them.
All right. So look, I would take this completely in order, but fuck that. Let's
Right.
jump right in on a hot one. I want to come at you hot with this one. Let's talk about a little Lucha Underground.
Right.
The Apuestas match. Something that I feel like Lucha Underground never got right. Superfly, Sexy Star. What the fuck, Konnan? Come on, break this down for me. Why did that go down that way in Lucha Underground?
That right there, that match was probably the beginning of the end of me in Lucha Underground, because I was having total meltdowns every week. And basically what happened is, I don't know if you guys remember the original, like the original owners was this guy, Alex Garcia, who's like a movie producer, Dorian, Fogelman, and this other Spanish guy that he had like a soccer team at one time in LA. You remember him?
Oh,
I know Casey would
I'm trying to think.
Okay, so those were like the main four owners, which none of them really knew about wrestling. You know, Dorian was the only one that knew about wrestling, right? So I remember that after the Sexy Star match, one of the owners came up to me and he goes, what did you think of that match? I go, that was absolutely fucking brutal, bro. Very disrespectful to Lucha Libre. I cannot believe you put that. I just fucking went ham. And I remember that Dorian was like, bro, don't say that to the owner, you know? I go, fuck that, bro. Why are you letting these guys do this shit? This is fucking bullshit. And he goes, well, I don't want to get involved. You know, I want to let them do their own way. Fuck their own way. They don't know. They don't know fucking Lucha Libre, dude. They come from WWE. This is bullshit. And I remember, and I was super mad because if you remember the premise of the match with zero buildup, let's just have Superfly and Sexy Star together. And I remember, bro, sitting in the back with Christopher DeJoseph. There was this, was like a control room where you would tell the director, hey, a tope's coming here, or this is coming here, so they wouldn't miss the shots. So I'm sitting back there with Chris Joseph, and he's looking at the match, and he's going, wow, I can't understand why this match isn't that good. You know, Sexy's real good. And I was like, what? I go,
First place you went wrong there.
I go, the only reason she's good is because all these other motherfuckers are making her look good. She's not good. And you're seeing it right now in this fucking match. So, you know, they took the guy's fucking hood off, never did anything after that, you know? And I remember another match where they brought Big Rick in, and I was like, all right, he's a cool dude because he was very nice, but doesn't know about lucha. And they put him in a match again. I don't want to pick on her against Sexy Star. It was fucking brutal. Okay, bro, Sexy Star is real tiny. She's like fucking Zelina Vega size, you know, like real small, you know? And they had her against this guy who doesn't know lucha. She's not a good worker. And, you know, this is kind of destiny in a way. He choke slammed her and actually gave her a concussion. They had to take her to the hospital.
Jeez.
You know, and that's what you get for that's not booked properly, you know? So all those things were driving me fucking crazy, and I just became very hard to deal with, very disrespectful, and it was like, you know, the end was going to come real soon.
Well, it's one of the reasons why we've been eager to talk to you at some point, because that was one of the moments in season 1 that really got me pissed, because honestly, I feel like it is really lessened what an apuestas match means here in the States overall in general. Right. Since then, you know, regardless of the big matches, and even, you know, Meef is friends with Phantasma up there. Even when Phantasma lost his mask, I felt like that didn't track here in the States as well as it would have. And it all goes back to that Superfly losing his mask for the second time to Sexy Star and Lucha Underground and having it mean absolutely nothing.
Right. Zero buildup. And I was like, I can't believe that's where we make our most money. You know, that's like where we make our most money. We build it up. If you do it right, you could actually build it up a whole year. Like I did a storyline with Niño Hamburguesa and Lady Maravilla, which was like a whole year, bro. And it culminated in a hair match. You know, if you tell the story right, yeah, we can story tell. Americans, you know, just we like lucha libre. We like to be entertained. Sometimes we just like to turn off our brain and just fucking watch guys fly and do cool shit. Is there something wrong with that? You know, so but when we got to tell a story, we're gonna tell a story because that's how you get the people in there to watch these big feuds, you know. And so I was very mad about, you know, like that really fucking set me off. As a matter of fact, we had a philosophical difference, me, Vampiro, and Chavo Guerrero, because they were more like, you know, they wanted more, a little bit more WWE wrestling. And I was like I want pure lucha, you know? And I was like, we're already watching WWE in various iterations. Let's give them pure lucha, bro. Let's give them what they came to see. And bro, I was right, because every time luchadors went against luchadors, they fucking rocked the house, bro. And I was like, there you go. And I remember we were having like these big philosophical differences, and they actually they brought us into a room one day, and I don't know if you remember this guy, John Fogelman.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, we know all about Mr. Fogelman.
Right. So Fogelman, you know, has a bad temper. You know, he was just basically in there. He was like, yeah, you know, I've heard all this fucking Konnan, you're always bitching, and Vampiro, you're always been. Vampiro's like, who, me? What are you talking about? Motherfucker, you know why you're in here. So, you know, and he was just, you know, just give me a reason to fire any of you guys. I'll fire all 3 of you guys. He was just fucking going off. You know, and he goes, can you guys work together? And I was, yeah, you ain't gonna catch us singing karaoke anytime soon, but yeah, we can work together. But we had like a philosophical difference, because my whole shit is, let's give them pure lucha. You know what I'm saying?
And those are the high points of season 1. What were you gonna say, Meef?
I was gonna say one of the magical things about lucha is, like you said, just putting it for pure enjoyment. But the guys tell the story in the ring, you know, the Rudos versus Technicos, and they sell it with their expressions. So you do get that storytelling.
Yeah. Which
is why I hate American audiences and people around the world when they just ignore, like, you know, you don't need the massive build sometimes.
No, there's a little snobbishness to it, you know, like, we're American, you know, when they have to look down at anything that isn't, you know, from here. There's like a little, you know, subtle, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I got to ask this about the apuestas type matches. Was the problem in Lucha Underground just conceptually, or was it also the business model, because these guys couldn't make extra money? Like, could Lucha Underground have decided to bring somebody up and take their mask off, or what?
Yeah, no. And there were a lot. I'll give you an example, bro. So we were having WrestleMania, right? And I was like, well, why don't we bring Lucha Underground to WrestleMania? But of course, they thought they were too artsy dartsy, and they were like, oh no, we're gonna go to South by Southwest. And I was like, so let me see if I got this right. You have a chance to go to a place where for 4 or 5 days, fans from all around the world are going just specifically to see wrestling. But no, we're going to go to a music concert and hope that those music fans like wrestling. That's where we're going. So those type of things, they lost money and shit like that. Like one time I remember I was in the office with Fogelman. He was talking to this company in South Korea. And, yeah, I just closed a deal with this company. And I was like, and I actually looked up the company. It was like this company that like nobody watched the network. They never toured. So yeah, there were a lot of inherent problems.
It never made it to the UK.
Well, I remember season 1, we were buying merch from the wrestlers in the parking lot.
Yeah, that's right. Because they weren't even selling merch.
And then they made us stop wearing them in the Lucha in the temple. We couldn't wear them in the temple.
How stupid was that?
There was lots of money to be printed there, and there's been several dropped balls.
Well, here, let me throw a fan question at you, because I think some of this might apply to this, and we can kind of help people unpack what the dynamic behind the scenes was a little bit. So Glenn Hernandez from Salt Lake City sent in a question to expolucha.com. He says, we hear Mark Burnett and Robert Rodriguez names mentioned a lot because the show was on El Rey and associated with MGM, but how much were Burnett and Rodriguez actually involved in the day-to-day of the shows? And I know the answer to this, but I'm going to let you answer this.
Bro, I don't think they were involved at all. I just think they sent their crew, like I think Skip Chasen, who's fucking a genius and a cool guy.
Yeah.
Skip, I think Robert sent Skip. Like, I'm going to send my best guy. He didn't send some fucking J-Bron because the guy knew what the fuck we was doing.
Yeah, Skip.
So he sent Skip. I don't know who the fuck Burnett's, and I think maybe Van Wagenen.
Van Wagenen is Burnett's right-hand guy, right, for this kind of stuff.
Right. But Burnett was a fucking pain in the ass because he just wanted more money. Like the second season got all fucking tied up and held up, and wrestlers were all pissed off because if you remember, they were telling wrestlers, yeah, don't wrestle anywhere for like the next few months because we're gonna come back and record, and they didn't. And like a lot of wrestlers lost a lot of money because they were waiting, and it was because of fucking Burnett. And I remember they were gonna even film it in Mexico instead of LA because that temple is very, very expensive. Don't look expensive, but it is. And so fucking I remember I said, well, fuck Mexico. Why don't we just go to Robert Rodriguez Studios in San Antonio and do it there if you're trying to save fucking money, And so it was always a pain in the ass with him because he just wanted more money and more money. And he was a big problem, bro. I know I'll never be on Survivor after this, but it was a big problem.
Oh, look, never say never in reality TV or wrestling. It can always happen.
Right. You only have heat until they need you.
Exactly. So let me throw it back to how you got involved in this whole thing. Like we see Chavo's name on the show as a producer. What did they bring you in for originally? Were you supposed to be a writer, a booker?
Bro, that was the biggest
on-air talent.
Right.
What's the deal?
That was like that lit it off, and it was slowly burning until we got to that fucking sexy match. So originally I was supposed to be one of the writers on the show. Hello. It's like, yeah, like I think that's kind of common sense. So I was supposed to be one of the original writers. And I remember that they were like interviewing different writers because I actually had writers calling me and saying, yeah, I just got interviewed by them and we might be working together. And it was cool. Next thing I know, they're like, we went to Mark Burnett's office and they told us it was going to be Chris DeJoseph, who I didn't know who he was. I know he worked in WWE because I used to pop when he came out as Fat Dudley or whatever his name was. Dick Johnson.
Big Dick Johnson.
Yeah. When he came out as Dick Johnson, I thought that was hilarious. And so, and I remember like one of the first times that we talked, I don't know whose idea this was, but they wanted to put like a box in the middle of the ring and do some really weird shit. And I was like, bro, that's fucking brutal. And then next thing I know, they weren't answering my calls. And then I was hearing that, oh no, you're not going to write. We'd rather have you be an agent, And I was like, okay, well, fuck it. And I told Dorian, bro, you brought me here under the fucking pretense that I was going to write the show. And now I'm an agent. You know, and he goes, no, don't worry, you know, we'll get that fixed. But for right now, let's see how they do. Right there, I'd already smelled fishy. I was like, all right, bro, you're not gonna bullshit a bullshitter. Then on top of that, fucking I remember that I took him to a show once in PWG, and I told him we need to sign Ricochet, AR Fox.
Yes.
What's this other? The Rich Swann, the Young Bucks, Kevin Steen, Brian Cage, and Willie Mack. Those were the guys I said.
They got about 20% of that, right?
Right.
Eventually.
So, right. But here's why Lucha Underground was always, this is the type of shit that only Lucha Underground would do. They had some jack-off, yes, you are a jack-off, called Tony Jensen. He was the lawyer of the fucking company, okay?
Yeah.
So they had this guy who doesn't know shit about wrestling, okay? Doesn't know how to talk to wrestlers. You know, you got to be able to talk their language, all right? And he calls the Young Bucks and he offers them $250 each. So they basically told me to go fuck myself and that, yeah, they'd sign if they got $2,500 each. And I was like, bro, Dorian, why don't you let me talk to the wrestlers? I already have a connection, a relationship with a lot of them, and I know how to go back and forth. But no, they kept him there. Then we ran into another problem because Gabe, the dictator Spokowski, had these three guys under contract. None of these three guys had a copy of their contract. None of them knew when their contract ended. You know, I was like, Gabe, you know, when, you know, can we, oh, that's torturous interference. I'm going to sue you if you keep talking to my talent. I go, well, are you going to have them under contract forever? I go, so we had to actually pay money to Gabe and a big amount too to get Ricochet. Cause I kept going, bro, Ricochet's the man. Ricochet's the man. You need to get this guy. And they did. Then when we went to get AR Fox, he wanted more money and that Lucha Underground was like, fuck him. And I was like, you know what? You're right. Fuck him. So, but,
well, see, this does bring us to another question too, from Jose Acosta. He wanted to know what it was like for you managing Prince Puma. And we've heard from Eric Van Wagenen and Skip on our show that Fogelman said that nobody was allowed to talk that first season except for you and Chavo and a couple other select people. Right, Byron? Who all did he say was allowed to talk?
Dario?
Dario, Luis. Yeah.
Luis, I mean, the only actor on the show got to talk. And
Mundo. So basically, there was like four of you that Fogelman was going to let talk.
We just, this past week's episode, we went over the Hernandez's first episode. And he even came on and got to say a few words in front of Puma, which we thought was kind of funny.
So what was the deal? I mean, look, I will not be the first one to say that Ricochet cuts a hot promo because I haven't heard one yet. But at the same time, like, what was your feeling? And it seemed like that was the role that they kind of pushed you into, was being the face of this guy, the stick for Ricochet.
Right. So what happened was, and you know, one thing I was very flattered because he did tell me that once. He was like, you, Dario, and ADR, you guys are fucking stars. And I was like, well, bro, coming from a guy from Hollywood, that's a compliment, right? So
one of the few, I'm sure.
Yeah, right. So, but you know, I'm all good. I don't really, to me, you know, I shake hands with any of them. Just, I'm going to tell the truth too, you know, and because I saw him in LA not too long ago, and he was, yeah, I heard you were mad at me, you know, and I go, yeah, I was mad. And I told him why, you know, and we squashed it. Some other guy, some other owner goes, yeah, I heard that you were mad at me. I go, yeah, I was fucking mad at you. And I'm going to tell you why. And, you know, we squashed it. You know what I'm saying? So I don't like to carry negative energy, but I'm also not going to bullshit people because everybody's too afraid to say anything nowadays. So you just end up going around in circles and bullshitting each other. And I'm just straight to the point. So anyways, how
did you feel about Puma though? That
Puma,
first season with Ricochet? Yeah.
Well, what happened was you got to remember two things. Trevor was not a good promo and he was supposed to be Mexican. So, I mean, you know, when you hear him talk with a country accent, because he's from Kentucky.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, you know, that was a good move. But I will say this, Trevor, you could tell he never, ever told me personally, but he hated it. He hated that he couldn't talk and he would get hot up in the ring a couple of times. I go, bro, quit being a fucking mark. Just right now, it is what it is. You know, one day they're probably going to let you talk. But in the meantime, just chill the fuck out.
And eventually they did. I mean, he got
Yeah.
a few words in after people had forgotten that his character was supposed to be Latino.
Right.
You know, but hey, it's brothers in Boyle,
But I want to
in Boyle Heights.
I want to ask you a question, you
Yeah.
three, because you guys are super fans of the show. I really stopped watching it after season 1 when I was on it. I might have watched a little bit of 2, but I kept reading this on Twitter a lot. And they were going, oh, you know, it's going downhill. Why are they doing this? And there was almost like some sort of shift. And it wasn't just a couple people. A lot of people were like, what happened in the show that it kind of turned sour for a percentage of the people?
Who wants to go first?
Oh,
Well,
I could say it goes back to your philosophical differences. I think you were in tune with the audience, at least in the temple. The big universal thing with fans is Lucha Underground made wrestling fans, like reborn wrestling fans. They brought them back, and it was seeing that Lucha Libre that they loved, and they went away from it.
And Byron, let me tell you something. This what outlaw LA Reed, LA Red? What's your real name?
Justin.
Listen to this, guys. Meatloaf. Okay, check this out. Bro, I went to the following countries. Okay. I went to Bolivia, Puerto Rico, Sudan, Qatar, however you want to fucking call it. All right. Chile. Okay. Chile. Every single place I went, they knew what Lucha Underground was, but yet they didn't have El Rey. It was like an underground fucking, like, it was really hotter than we know, you know. And I found out when I was going to these countries and you know, they were asking, you know, Ray to sign Lucha Underground stuff and ADR to sign them and me too. And I was like, wow, you guys know about Lucha Underground? They were really into it. So yeah.
Yeah, one of the running jokes during we did the first run watch through was the fact that I used to watch it illegally because they just didn't have a deal. Which
Yeah, you doing a podcast about the show and never watched it legally once at the time.
Yeah.
The UK literally had the biggest, hottest scene at the time because it was like 2016, 15.
Yeah, super
and
hot.
like that's when like Brit Wrest was huge, and it was like, right, if you put Lucha Underground there, because everybody here knew it, and they're insane. But
Let me throw in another one
question though, was literally the fact that I, like Byron said, came back to it, but loved it.
But let me ask you, Jason. So what happened that fans kind of turned on it a little bit, in your estimation?
There was a few things. The first long hiatus and the fact that their business model didn't work out for touring.
Yeah, that long hiatus killed them.
Because
all the hiatus did.
Yeah, even the fans that were really still invested in the product, that really believed in the characters and what they were doing with the storylines, even those fans, including ourselves, started to get aggravated by the fact that they couldn't get their business model together. We couldn't get the kind of merch we wanted. We couldn't see the show. We couldn't see house shows. They couldn't keep our favorite workers employed the right way. And like everybody in that crowd was a smart fan to a certain extent. I won't call them marks because marks are people that you put a mark on to get money out of. If you're talking about the old Carney terms, we weren't marks because they weren't getting any fucking money out of us.
Right.
That's how stupid they were, that you had this crowd of smart fans sitting there at your disposal that you could be taking advantage of.
They're
not even marking us out
outside for fucking hours in the sun.
I've done it.
Yeah.
And that's the amazing thing to me. It's like, yeah, so over the course of all those years of Lucha Underground, all the times that I've been there, they literally made $65 off of me, Konnan. $65. A 4-year fan. How do you only get $65 out of that guy? That's horrible. So I'm not even a Lucha Underground mark. There's no such thing as a Lucha Underground mark. You make money off of marks. They never made a penny off of any of us. It was a bad business model. But that was a big part of the shift, I think. And then season 4, they brought in a lot of indie talent that I really liked. They did a lot of great things, but you know, a lot of the complaints from the fans, especially the Latino fans, were, you know, the whitening of Lucha Underground was a big problem in season 4. And we've had Chris Roach and DeJoseph and Evie Dub and some of those guys on the show and even asked them about it. They did not realize that they were doing it or that it was happening at all. They genuinely blank stares like, what? We just thought we were bringing in good guys and whatnot.
Right, because they're white. because they're white.
Yeah.
You know? So
I was like,
me being a Latino, I would always make sure that, you know what I'm saying?
yeah, a percentage. Like they were so white by season 4, they were paler than me.
And I like those performers, man. I mean, like I think Jack Swagger is a hell of a guy, nice
but
guy.
he's not a lucha guy. He's not.
Right.
He doesn't survive well in our ecosystem. It's a whole different style, bro. It's a whole different feeling. You know what I'm saying?
Now,
and let me just say this. I want to say this. I can't talk about it right now because it may not happen, but it might. You know, there could be a possibility that I will be able to bring back lucha to the United States my way and in a grand way. And I want to bring in everything from our cultures, everything from Puerto Rican culture, Cuban culture, Mexican culture, from the music, salsa, merengue, to everything, bro. You know, the music that like Bad Bunny, you know, Zuna is doing, all that, you know, Latino urban and all that, and just fucking cool shit. Hopefully I may be able to get the chance to do that right one day.
Well, you absolutely let us know when that's happening, because we will shout it out to the world. I will say this though about the whitening of Lucha Underground. The one guy that we definitely signed off on that we loved was Kevin Cross from the get-go.
Right.
He actually even announced getting signed to Lucha Underground on our show. You know,
really?
we've been great friends with. We saw him in one of those dark matches, and we all just knew as fans sitting there that, like, hey, this guy has something different. I want to be on board with this guy right now from day one. Mm-hmm. And we stood behind him the whole time, all the way up to where he's at now, you know, in WWE, because the guy put in the work and he showed something different, and you could just see it from day one. So he was the guy that we supported. A lot of the other ones, maybe not so much.
You know, there are certain guys, whether it's Rey Mysterio, Eddie Guerrero, or even Ricochet, Kevin Cross, that when I see them, I only need to see them once, and I know they're special. And you guys saw that too. From the way he carried himself, to his look, to respect for the business, very articulate. Just, bro, I loved working with him. And poor guy, because when I went to Mexico isn't used to like squash matches, and I needed him to squash a whole bunch of people. And they were like, oh, we're not going to fly him in just to squash somebody in 40 seconds. I'm like, bro, you got to look at the long-term picture, you know, but you know, Mexico still is a third world country, and, you know, they just can't be spending money like that, you know? Right. So it was very hard, and it was a different style, and I tried the best I could with him. And it's so funny because right before he left, he was going to do his first job. I had him undefeated. Okay. He was going to do his first job, and I was going to put him in Los Ingobernables, who right now are undefeated. So him, Rush, LA Park, that would have been so fucking badass. Fire. Yeah. And he escaped from you without me getting the job back from him. I put him over for as long as I was there, 3 years, and he never did one fucking job.
Hey, you never know. Maybe one day he'll show up with that briefcase and cash it in finally.
Yeah, no, I love him, bro. He's got nothing but love and respect from me, bro. Great guy.
One of our favorite moments ever was the Phantasma and Tejano feud that was going on when Kevin Cross got involved in it. Right. And he went into the crowd.
The popcorn.
And the crowd were trying to like attack him and stop him. And some woman went to throw herself underneath Tejano's stretcher as he like threw him off it. It was just fantastic TV.
That must have been when Vampiro was there, right? Or was that
maybe?
Yeah.
I don't know if they played his music or not.
So. Vampiro was doing that shoot work with Mundo or whatever that he was trying to pull off.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know if you ever saw this, but I wasn't watching because I left AAA for like 2 years, I think. I went to another promotion called Crash.
Yeah, the Crash. Yeah, we love it.
Yeah, thank you. And so we did one day, I don't know how I saw it, but he was on TV, and this is a shoot, bro. He was on TV and he was talking to Fabi Apache. When she turned around, he had disappeared. And I was like, what? Did you ever see that?
No.
So he was playing some like disappearing character, a supernatural character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was
anybody that's listening to this show,
that's
right
amazing.
Into Justin, so Justin doesn't think I'm too high, which I am, but I did not invent that.
Yeah. No, I remember that he became an on-camera like talent person, talent executive as well.
Yeah. But he was doing some gimmick. I really didn't remember what it was. Where he was
every match had him come in, didn't it? Every kind of main event was Vampiro come down and would be throwing out the result. The cage match with Phantasma and Tejano, where they cut it to shit, and then I think Tejano nearly fucking murdered Vampiro. backstage.
Yeah, bro. He got a lot of heat because fucking Phantasma called me and he was fucking livid. But even worse was this. I saw this once. They were in Juarez and they were in a cage. And Vampiro came in and Psycho Clown was in the ring.
Yeah.
Phantasma was in the ring. And Kevin Cross was in the ring. He came in and Kevin Cross, I think, pushed him or he pushed Kevin Cross. And I thought he was going to leave the ring, right? No, he doubled down and closed the cage door and confronted Kevin again. And I was like, wow, really? You punked Kevin, Psycho, and Phantasma? That's
not smart,
dude. You know?
Yeah.
Let me throw in this question from our friend Alex in Bakersfield. He wants to know, is there anyone else you would have brought into Lucha Underground that you didn't get a chance to, that you would have liked to have seen there?
Yeah, AR Fox. But he ended up going there, right?
And was one of my favorites. Like I was a fan of AR when he was in CZW and whatnot. But man, when he came into Lucha Underground, the stuff he did blew fucking doors for me. And it made Killshot that character too.
Yeah,
like
he's ridiculously talented. Listen to this. Well, one time him and Willie Mack were in Mexico wrestling for some small promotion. I think it was DTU. And they were like, yeah, it's our day off today. And I was doing a TV taping and they said, well, if you need us, we're going to be hanging around. And from some stroke of luck, somebody missed the show that day. So I put them in the ring. They'd never been seen in Mexico. Nobody knew who the fuck they were. I've never seen this in my career. I've never seen anybody in their debut match have money thrown into the ring. And bro, they had money thrown into the ring.
I would throw money at AR Fox right now if anybody could find his ass, man.
He's in Atlanta. And I asked one of his students, this guy called Zenshi, because I'm gonna go to Atlanta to do a personal appearance. And I was like, bro, why don't we get him on the show? He goes, he's gonna ask for a lot because he's making a lot of money now giving like wrestling classes.
Yeah. He'd be a great guy to learn from too. I mean,
he's fucking awesome.
He's fucking sick. And the stuff he did with Swerve and Lucha Underground was really good. That was one of the high points to me of some of the later seasons.
Swerve.
Yeah, Swerve ended up. Swerve hated being under a hood too, though, man. He didn't dig it.
Yeah, he didn't need a hood, bro. He's a good-looking kid.
Yeah, and he's out there now doing it without it.
NXT, he's doing his shit. Good shit. Phantasma, man, he's fucking killing it.
Yeah, Meef is probably one of the biggest Phantasma fans. I don't know if you can see all those masks back there, but 80% of them are.
This is Penta and Phoenix.
Oh, so I'm gonna give you a Phantasma story just for you, Meef. It's Meef? I thought it was Meat. All right. Meatloaf sounds better, dude. So I'm gonna
that's why I look like Meatloaf, because I used to have hair down to my hips. So
yes, and you look like you eat meatloaf too. But anyways,
yeah.
here's the thing with Phantasma. So I've known Phantasma since he was a little boy. Okay, and I remember I would go to the gym. You can ask him if you ever see him. His dad, Phantasma Senior, would always say, if you want to grow up to be strong like Konnan, because back then I had like a bodybuilder physique, he was like, you got to eat all your food in the morning, right? So he'd always eat his food because he wanted to be big and strong. So his dad told me that they weren't really using him right in Arena Mexico. He was like in the third match, and so I talked to him and he came over here and he had never done a promo. And if you go back and you look at his debut, it was in Puebla. I'll never forget it. It was in Puebla. And I gave him the microphone. I told him to cut a promo and bury CMLL. Bro, he could not cut a promo. He was out of shape. And I told him, I go, straight up, dude, if you want to be a star, you got to look like a star. You're in really bad shape. He got in tremendous shape and he became one of my biggest studs. He was the leader of the Mercenarios. He was going to be the leader of my other group that I had, I think the Sociedad, what were we called at the end? I had some group at the end that he was going to be the leader of. And, he just turned into a big star. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you look at his promos now and the thing that we always comment on, like in NXT was like,
but look at his promo from Puebla and his debut. I gave him the mic.
I'll check that out.
Since they don't really talk too much in CMLL, he was fucking brutal.
All right, I got another question here. This one is from unknown, hailing from unknown, height unknown, weight unknown. Is it true that someone refused to put Penta over at Ultima Lucha, leading to Penta versus Vampiro instead?
Was that in season 1?
Yeah.
Season 1.
This is the Del Rio story, isn't it?
I don't remember that. Is it something with Del Rio? I do remember that Del Rio was super, super pissed because he had a match with, I think that Marty the Moth, and it was a squash match. Okay. I mean, the fucking word is it, squash match, so he went in there and he got accused of poor Van Wagenen. He got caught in the middle of this one. So I think Van Wagenen was the one that told Fogelman that ADR didn't want to sell for Marty the Moth, right? And so ADR went and confronted Van Wagenen. Van Wagenen didn't know that Fogelman had told ADR. So he was like, what the fuck? Who told you? And he was protecting Vampiro, but Vampiro was one that told him that he didn't sell. And he was like, well, I'm just telling you right fucking now. A squash match means just that, a squash match. You don't give the guy anything. You don't sell for him. It's your turn to look good, So, and he was really mad at him. And I got mad at Van Wagenen too, because I used to tell him, bro, and I don't want to keep picking on Van because we made amends, but he would actually get on the show and who he personally liked, he'd put over, and who he personally disliked, he'd bury. So he'd bury me and he'd bury ADR. And I was like, hey, we're baby faces. Why is he burying us? Oh, that's just Vampiro. I go, fuck that, bro. He shouldn't be burying us. We're baby faces. You know what I'm saying? Is he a heel now? If he's a heel commentator, then he should be burying us. But he can't put over other face guys and then bury us.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So
who was that gorilla?
ADR, straight up, this is a true story. ADR was seconds from beating his ass, and I stopped him.
Yeah, because he can shoot. He can shoot fight.
Yes.
And
he's got a very bad temper too.
Who was in Gorilla that was in Vamp and Striker's ears? Like who was talking to them during the show?
Whoever was in the control room, usually to Joseph and the agent of that match. Like I would give Striker lines like, hey, the Villanos won this championship, or they did that. So I'd give him lines. I would never really tell Vamp anything because he's the type of guy that very unpredictable, is going to do what he wants anyway. So I'm like, bro, that's kind of a waste of time. So I just give Striker a lot of like historical information and shit. But my big peeve was like, you need to control this guy because he's just fucking, that's very unprofessional.
Well, I think that was one of the things that was missing. And from what I've heard from Skip and EB Dub, one of the things that they loved about having you in Lucha Underground was that kind of input and giving the historical context, whether it be from wrestling in Mexico to the Aztec stuff and kind of some of the folklore stuff that you were kind of helping them navigate through, which added to the world. But we noticed a match recently, because we've been rewatching the whole show from the beginning again, where Vampiro was saying lots and lots of very nice things about you on the mic, and we could swear to God that you were in his ear or something during that match, because it was cracking us up.
I would never tell him to talk good about me, but I just thought it was very unprofessional that your job as a commentator is to enhance the match, not be taking out your personal fucking issues on other people. You know what I'm saying? Because if you're a heel commentator and that's what you are, then you need to stick by that. You can't put over other baby faces. So he was selectively, whoever he liked is basically who he would. And I told Van Wagenen, and I like Van Wagenen. I got along with Van Wagenen, and I did. But, I told him, bro, you need to check this motherfucker. And he was like, oh, well, that's how Vampiro is. That's his style. I go, that's not professional.
All right. So here's a hypothetical for you, Konnan. If Triple Mania were to be up and running tomorrow, but you could only have either Vampiro on commentary or Kevin Gill, who would it be?
I would just shoot myself twice. One doesn't know what the fuck he's saying, bro, which would be Kevin Gill, big buckethead himself. And Vampiro would steal everybody's lunch. He would have no trepidations of during a match getting up and just stealing all the attention from the fans, So I had to, I was like, bro, you can't be doing that anymore. That's why he's basically not there.
Yeah, he's got a talk show now, so we'll leave
How
it
is
at
that going?
I haven't watched one yet, to be honest. So let's see. This one comes from Disco Ball Gag in Peoria, Washington.
Tremendous.
That's a great name, Disco Ball Gag. What was the plan for Konnan in season 2 if you had stayed on? But did they have plans for you? Was it going to keep down this path? Did Dorian know what he was going to do with you?
Yeah, Dorian didn't write. The guys that wrote was Chris DeJoseph, Chris, some other
Chris Roach.
Yeah. And then another third guy. There was like 3 guys. The short guy, I forgot his name.
Yeah, I forget him too.
But anyways, those were the guys that were really writing the show. And I just think that once they knew that I was on my way out, you know, they, because I would always ask Chris, what's going on? What's going on? He very disingenuously was, oh, I don't know. But he knew exactly what was going on. And so I think once they knew that I was on my way out, that's why they wrote me off the show. You know, they put me in a casket or some shit.
Now, did they ever take any input from you into the writing room? I mean, it feels like your hands were definitely on a lot of that early stuff, but was that just from agenting, or did they actually incorporate some of your knowledge base into the writing?
Yeah, no, I would give them a couple of ideas here and there how to make things better, but it was mostly them, you know? And like I said, my whole thing was when I came to grips that, okay, I'm not going to be writing this like I was promised. I was like, I'm going to try to keep it as authentic as I can. So whenever they do something that would break with that, I would just fucking go nuts, you know? And maybe I think I melted down way too many times and they just said, fuck this guy, you know?
So how did it actually end, Konnan? I mean, like, what was the breaking point? Did they tell you to kick rocks? Did you tell them to kick rocks? What happened? How did it actually come to an end?
Well, it was just building up, you know, because, you know, I'll give you an example, bro. One time, I had a big issue with Sexy Sarbi. She did not want to sell, listen to this, for Brian Cage. Okay. And I was like, bro, you're giving these girls way too much power, because Evelise would be cutting promos on Jack Evans, on Angelico, on Matt Cross. If you've ever met like Angelico, Matt, they're the coolest, most chill out guys. She's always cutting promos, and then she had like a cast on her leg, and they were still letting her guys with crutches. And she was telling, I was like, bro, you're giving these girls way too much power. They don't want to sell. They don't want to do any. So I was just always complaining about what I thought was wrong, because in Mexico, there's no way that would happen. Right. You know, and because you have to have discipline, to have organization, and to have respect, and to have professionalism, you know. So, you know, they were into that whole woman empowerment thing that, you know, LA being LA, and Robert Rodriguez was into it, and all the snowflakes were kind of into it. So yeah, I'm all for women empowerment. Cool. I am too. But they were like taking advantage of it. You know what I'm saying? And when you're her size, and when you're Brian Cage's size, and you want to sell for him, we've got a problem. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, look, the Taya Brian Cage match was fire. That shit was the right way to do it. Whatever got it to there was great. But the stuff that they did in season 1, especially like the weird rapey shit with Angelico and Ivelisse, that stuff was just creepy, man. We've been watching it recently, and it's just like, wow, that was off the mark.
Yeah. And
it didn't make sense. And the Big Rick Sexy Star thing, that one didn't make sense either. But, you know.
Here's another thing that I want to say. I want to give much props to Dario Cueto. What a professional. What an incredible. I saw him in some show the other day, he looked, but anyways.
Yeah, Luis Fernandez Gil, he's a great guy.
Yeah, and what I loved about working with him was that when, you know, usually when I do a promo, I'm usually the most experienced guy, and I have to carry the other guy. And obviously when I was young, they did the same thing for me. But when I was with Dario, it was incredible, because we kind of carried each other. We fed off of each other's energy, you know. And Skip was really cool, because he actually brought us a scene once, which I thought was fucking dope. You know that famous scene where Robert De Niro and Al Pacino from Heat
are at the
table, and they finally meet? Bro, he gave us that scene, and I was like, really? Is that like what you really think we can do? You know, and we just looked at it once, and then we just fucking carried that energy to the promo, and working with him was fucking incredible, bro. That was a highlight for me over there. And working with Skip was a big highlight too.
Yeah, Skip is amazing. We did a 2-part interview with him on this show and got to ask him about a lot of those. And he told us that, he got inspiration from a lot of different places because, he was a guy who made all those hot trailers in Hollywood. So he knew how to cut for Ridley Scott and for Steven Spielberg and for Robert Rodriguez. Like, he knows every big director's style because he's the guy that makes their trailers and he makes them hot. He makes them fire. So, he was bringing that to Lucha Underground and creating his own style kind of out of that fact that he's the ultimate guy to pay homage to those directors.
Bro, he had one time I did this scene like in the water where I was fighting a whole bunch of guys and he brought like his Taekwondo instructor to teach me how to do everything right. And then like I forgot the name of the movie, but he was really into this Japanese martial arts thing for Pentagon. And he made me watch that movie. And I was like, well, I didn't even know this guy existed. But, he was a very cerebral guy.
Yeah, it's pretty badass. So I do want to talk to you about Phoenix and Penta. And especially their early runs. Phoenix seemed like the guy who was the young buck coming out of Mexico that got the push season 1. Were you one of the people behind him getting that push? How did that come about? Because when you go back and watch it now, like, it makes perfect sense knowing who Phoenix is now. But back then, like, I was excited to see Drago. I was excited to see Penta because I cracked up with his stuff with Aussie Suicide that was going on in AAA. Like, I love that stuff. Cracked me up. I didn't know much about Phoenix. And he comes in, and then all of a sudden, he's the guy getting the rub that first season. Like, who knew? Because somebody obviously knew.
Well, I knew because I'll tell you why. When Rey Mysterio first debuted in WWE, he came back to AAA. It might have been like, I want to say 2012, but it might have been later. But around that time, he wasn't in WWE anymore, and I brought him back. And I remember we were in Guadalajara. I'll never forget it because the show got canceled the day before because it was raining. And I remember telling Ray, see this kid right here? His name is Phoenix. He goes, he met you when he was like 12 years old in a mall, and he didn't get to talk to you because there were so many people, and he cried that day. And I go, he wants to shake your hand, Ray, but he's going to be the next great high flyer out of Mexico. And they shook hands. And when he later saw him in Lucha, in AAA and then Lucha Underground, he was like, wow, you were right. Because Phoenix that guy was special from the moment I saw him. And when I met him in Pentagon, this is a true story. I had actually met him they were inside of a ring and they were just practicing around, and they were dressed so poorly that I thought they might be kids that lived in the street. So I really felt sorry for them and I wanted to help them. Plus the fact that they were talented as fuck. And I was like, okay, look, I can't just bring you into AAA. So we're going to have these tryouts, go to the tryouts. And I remember they went to the first tryout and, Dorian's dad and him, well, we're not sure. And I was like, bro, why do I even have to ask you guys? Hasn't my history been good enough of me, creating stars that I don't have to get you? Well, we need to see him again. And then one time Pentagon can tell you the story. And I think this is when I got over with them. We were at this show and they made him wait till after the show was over to do the tryout. So they'd been there for like fucking 6-7 hours, bro. It was fucking 3 a.m. That's when we were finally getting out of there. And they came back to me and they were really sad. And they were like, yeah, I guess we're not going to get to do our tryout. And I was like, fuck that. Put the fucking ring up and we're going to have a tryout right now. And everybody's going to stay and everybody's going to fucking watch it. And I think that really impressed them. They never forgot that, but that's the way I am. You know what I'm saying? When I believe in somebody or something, I'm going to go the extra mile, and, Phoenix came the other day over here because he doesn't live too far from me. He gave me some Boston Celtics sneakers, like it's all love, and I love those guys. And whether it's Rey Mysterio or the original Psychosis or Halloween or LAX or Ty or any of those people, I love all those guys. You know what I'm saying? We spend a lot of time together. Watch for the next people that are coming. Daga and Taurus and Laredo Kid and Hijo de Vikingo and Viano and all those guys, bro. There's a new group that's going to be coming too, and they're going to kill it.
Yeah, Daga and Taurus are high on my list right now. And Phoenix, he has a crazy story with Lucha Underground because things got real trepidatious there in the middle for him because his situation with AAA was weird. So all of us Lucha Underground fans, we didn't know what was going on. you know, and you had him down there in the Crash for a while and other places, and we're helping him out. Like, what was it like for him, you know, from a worker standpoint, going through that? Like, we all know contracts or whatever, like shit happens, shit gets tenuous sometimes and whatever. But what was it like for him going through that experience to be able to come out of it on the other side now and be universally respected as one of the top guys out there?
You know, which contract, the AAA contract or the Lucha?
Yeah, when both of them. I mean, it was all kind of rolled together,
yeah,
and
simultaneously. Yeah, because if you had heat with AAA, you had heat with Lucha Underground. So yeah, you know, at first he was afraid because you know they were actually sending cease and desist letters and promoters like, yeah, we're not going to use them, and that's actually how me and Dorian actually had to talk again. I'm going to tell my story the way it should be told instead of other people saying it. What actually happened is that Ed Nordholm from Impact Wrestling is very good friends with Dorian. Okay. Mm-hmm. And he told me one day, he goes, just so you know, you keep using Pentagon and Phoenix, you know that's not their names. This guy's going to keep suing you. And if you put him on TV, he's going to sue you. Just so you know. So I basically had a meeting with Dorian where I just basically said, okay, is there any way that because, you know, those were my two biggest stars. Is there any way that we can pay you a percentage or we can come to some agreement so they can use those names, you know? And he was really mad at me. You know, he was like, yeah, you know, you've been insulting me on your podcast and you're talking about my mom and all this. And, you know, and he was very, he was like, no way, basically, you know, like fuck off, actually. And so the guy from Crash was really mad with me that I went to talk to Dorian. He thought I was going back to AAA to ask for work. And I was like, no, motherfucker, I'm trying to get him to quit suing us because we're going to fucking go broke pretty soon with all these fucking cease and desist letters, you know? So Phoenix was very afraid because, you know, he didn't want to have to pay lawyers' fees and he didn't want, you know, some promoters are like, fuck it, he can sue us all he wants. And other promoters like, no, we're not going to use you. So it was a really hard time for him. And thank God I was able to fix the situation because when Crash finally, they actually let me go. And then Dorian called me and he was like, is this an angle? Is this a shoot? And I was like, no, it's for real. And then, you know, he sat down and he talked to me and then, you know, we kind of squashed everything. You know what I'm saying? And I came back and really straight up, I would tell you if it wasn't, it's been 3 beautiful years since I came back. You know, everything he promised me, he did. And he's been very easy to work with, you know, very easy to work with. And I think that he recognizes some of the mistakes that he made in Lucha Underground and other places.
I've said this on our show before too. Like I've only talked to Dorian a couple of times and haven't had a ton of interaction with him, but it seems like there was a point during Lucha Underground actually between seasons 3 and 4, where he turned a corner. He stopped doing a lot of the stuff that, you know, made fans angry, that was getting him heat with us and getting him heat with the boys too. And I don't know exactly what it was, if there was some catalyst. The way I looked at Dorian, honestly, was that he was this guy who was trying to impress his buddies, whether it was those original Lucha Underground owners or it was the Combates Americas guys over there with ADR, whatever it was. It felt like every time Dorian was in a room, he was trying to impress somebody. But for some reason, maybe just age, wisdom, time, maybe somebody got in his ear or something, it seemed like about 2.5 years ago, he just really turned a corner and changed. Was there something going on there?
I don't know, but he has changed 100%, bro. When I talked to him and I was like, let's see how much bullshit this guy's going to throw at me. And when I talked to him, he was very like, he never said, I'm sorry, but you could tell he was sorry. You know, he regretted. I think, I'm going to tell you the truth, bro. I really think that when I left, he was like, okay, well, I brought Vampiro in, right? I thought he'd be able to fill his place. Okay. And Pentagon, Phoenix, Garza, Daga, Jack Abbott, all these people, most of them have contracts and they still left with him. And he doesn't even have TV. You know, I think when a lot of wrestlers left and they had to change the way they did business in the promotion, I'll give you an example. This was like one of the things that Pentagon and Phoenix were actually mad at, and Daga too, Taya. From Mexico City to Laredo, it's 17 hours. And they would get on a bus, and it's not a nice bus either. 17 hours to go all the way over there. Then they'd wrestle, And then to save money on a hotel, they wouldn't even get them a hotel so they could change and take a shower and shit. They'd bring them right back to Mexico. That fucking stopped. You know, now people are being flown. So changes are being made. And I think all those people leaving and me leaving, I think that was a huge wake-up call. Like, you don't know what you have until you lose it. You know what I'm saying?